God is good. I spend a lot of time talking about MMOs and Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, but I have another love deep inside of me. JRPGs. I love them. I can't get enough of them. And if you're watching this video, you probably feel the same way. Let's get to it. Now, the Super Nintendo boasted many great RPGs, and a lot of them still hold weight and value today with proper reinstallments, re-releases, etc. But I want to go back a bit further. Let's talk about a couple of NES, that's right, the original Nintendo Entertainment System that introduced me to this world of JRPGs back in my childhood. Final Fantasy, the very first one. This got me hooked. The turn-based combat, the choice of what class to start with, the world, the modes of transportation. I just could not believe that this much game could be on my little Nintendo. It was a grand adventure sprawling across a world. It had different races, it had many different towns, spells, swords, and my little child brain was blown away. I remember in the car ride home after getting my copy of Final Fantasy, opening the box and looking at the map completely dumbfounded. Checking out the mini guide that came with the game for the first bit of the game, and I was hooked before I had even slipped it into my Nintendo. Well played, Squaresoft, well played. Dragon Warrior. This game is actually Dragon Quest, but for some reason they decided to call it Dragon Warrior in the North American launch. Hilariously bad box art, but more Final Fantasy for me is the way I saw it back when I was a kid. Now granted, this game came out before Final Fantasy and was a huge inspiration for the development of Final Fantasy, but I didn't know that when I was a kid. This was just more what I had grown to love, another grand adventure, this time with first-person combat, but all the charm and the world building I had grown to love. Wizardry. Okay, hold with me. This was an American-made game, but it did inspire many of the JRPGs we all love today. I still can't believe they ported this PC game over to NES, but they did, and it is hard. I may not have made it very far in this game as a child, but I had a heck of a time trying. This was like the Dark Souls of the NES era. Death was bound to happen. A lot. Legend of Zelda. Fantastic, wonderful. The puzzle solving, the open world, the dangers, the skill. It was a fantastic time as a kid. Every day was just another chance at figuring out some secret, some bush that held a heart, some dungeon with another item, to run back to school to tell all my friends what I found and how I found it. Best childhood ever. Now let's move on to the superb Super Nintendo. And let's get crazy on all the great JRPGs, and because there's so many, guys, I know I'll leave out some of your favorites. I'm sorry. It's just not possible for me to list them all and keep this video at a reasonable time frame. So, hurt feelings aside, let's get to it. Final Fantasy VI. I have to mention this one first. I mean, I got to. The story is so epic, the characters are so fantastic, the graphics were just so gorgeous. I love that they increased the sprite size in Final Fantasy VI from Final Fantasy IV. By the way, we didn't get Final Fantasy V in North America properly released, and as a matter of fact, upon release, this game was called Final Fantasy III, even though it was actually the sixth in the series, because Final Fantasy II and III didn't launch on the NES in America, so Final Fantasy IV, you know what, let's move on. Final Fantasy VI is to this day my favorite old-school JRPG, so good. If you haven't played it, what are you doing with your life? Close this video and go get it, and you're welcome. Why are you still here? Go get it. Chrono Trigger, holy crap, multiple endings, a knight that is a frog, a time-traveling story, combat without going to a separate screen, combat that encourages placement and timing, gorgeous sprite-based graphics, I mean gorgeous, artwork by Akira Toriyama of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z fame, what a time. I'll never recapture that feeling in my first playthrough of Chrono Trigger, but I'll also never forget it. I love you, Chrono Trigger, I love you. Illusion of Gaia. Awesome game, phenomenal soundtrack, great story, great characters in the world. Oh, wait till you hear this. It has real locations like the Great Wall of China, the sunken city of Mu. Oh, it was just a blast. The game was a trilogy, but this was the only one I've played so far, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it was the only one released in America, so don't stone me. Earthbound. A cult classic, Nintendo's premier RPG, and based on a more real-world kind of thing. Like, it starts in a suburb, and you're just some boy in an alien lands near your house in the middle of the night. And from there, the adventure just keeps getting more bizarre and hilarious. Earthbound doesn't take itself too seriously, and it makes for a one-of-a-kind experience. Breath of Fire. Switching developers between the first and second, they're both great. And I love the starting as a child and then becoming an adult. Sure, being a child is more of a tutorial, but it was a really cool way of showing where the main character with his cute little blue hair came from and gets you into it right away. Plus, morphing into a dragon. Seriously awesome. I wish this series would make a comeback. I'm gonna totally pretend the phone Breath of Fire didn't even happen. It didn't even happen. Don't mention it. It didn't even happen. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Taking the Zelda formula, making it even better. What a classic. Traveling to the Dark World, introducing new elements and items that still hold into the Zelda formula to this day. And all the way until the release of the recent Breath of the Wild, the Zelda franchise pretty much stuck to the Link to the Past formula all the way through. I think we've all played A Link to the Past, and I think we all loved it. I think it probably made our parents happy too, as we sat for hours in Hyrule not saying a word, just drooling on my Super Nintendo gamepad, Mom. Nothing to see here. Secret of Mana. Square. You took the Zelda formula and you improved it. I feel dirty even saying it, but it's true. Adding in classic JRPG elements and popping in a Squaresoft story, then flavoring it up with some of the best sprite graphics you can find, and well, you have a winner, Square, you have a winner. The remake on PS4 though, well, let's just move on, shall we? Before I move on to what you guys think I'm going to do, which will be to talk about the insane library on the PS1, I'm going to throw you a curveball, because I didn't get a PlayStation for a long time. I was one of those Sega Saturn nerds. I loved my Sega Saturn. Actually, you know what? The Sega Saturn is still my favorite console, and it had some great JRPGs, and one so awesome that every JRPG fan needs to just find a way to play it. Like right freaking now, let's get to it. Guardian Heroes. Okay, so it's a side-scroller, and it's kind of a beat 'em up, but it has JRPG elements and it was so freaking good. Man, those graphics still look insane today. Branching paths, multiple endings, it's just so good. I mean, look at this game. Don't you want to play it right now? Well, guess what? It was released to the Xbox Arcade, kind of a remake, I guess you could say, with a few changes. Check it out. Shining the Holy Ark. I actually replayed this recently. This game has the feels. It used that same technology used in games like Donkey Kong Country, where they scanned in 3D objects into a 2D environment for character models, except for this game could be moved in 3D, sorta. It was a dungeon crawler with towns to explore, like actually walk around in, and it's just so awesome. I love this game. Look how retro and awesome it looks. Bring back the series, please. Dark Savior. Sequel to the Great Landstalker for the Sega Genesis, which we completely skipped over. 3D isometric JRPG with platforming and puzzle elements. In the original Japanese version, you collected cigarettes and alcohol and magazines. We're not going to discuss what those magazines were, but in America it was bottles and chocolate, I think. This game also gets into some science fiction, and it's a great game, and very possibly one you haven't heard of or played. Check it out, it's awesome. And now, the ultimate. My favorite JRPG, the golden child of the Sega Saturn, the amazing Panzer Dragoon Saga. They took the fantastic dragon riding shooter for the Sega Saturn and made a full, beautiful, awesome RPG out of its world, and oh boy was it a joy to behold. It was worth owning a Sega Saturn just for this game. I'm not alone when I say this is my favorite JRPG. I just love every piece of it. It's not a lengthy game, but it's full of just bubbly flavor, and the world is just one of a kind. The combat is very different than any RPG you've ever played. The sad part, the game will probably never be re-released, as Sega lost the code to the game. So sad. Panzer Dragoon Saga, you will always be in my heart. Alright guys, this is the part where I dive into PS1 JRPGs, except this video has went on for way too long. If you enjoyed the video, throw me some love, like, comment, and if you want to see my next part in the JRPG series, I'll be doing a full video on PS1 titles next. There are so many. So many. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you then. God bless, and happy gaming.